Look at how efficient Jordan Clarkson has been from 3 this season when there's a defender nearby. He's shooting over 40% from beyond the arc when the closest defender is within 4 feet. However, when the closest defender is more than 4 feet away, his efficiency paradoxically drops below 35%. These gray lines are some of the NBA's most prolific three-point shooters this season, and how efficient they've been depending on how close the nearest defender is. So we can contrast Clarkson with Donovan Mitchell, and as you might expect, he gets more and more efficient the more open he is. He's over 50% from 3 when there's no defender within 6 feet. But let's consider some other players. Next, here's Jordan Poole. Like Mitchell, Poole is at his most efficient when he's wide open. But unlike Mitchell, he's been slightly more efficient when a defender is within 4 feet, as opposed to this 4 to 6 foot distance where he's least efficient. Some other players that follow this same pattern would be Tyler Hero, Michael Porter Jr., and AJ Green. Next, here's Anthony Edwards, and you can see how he's kind of the opposite of that group. He's at his most efficient from 3 this season when a defender is 4 to 6 feet away, but when he's wide open, or when the defender is closer, he's worse. Some other players who are similar would be Keontae George, although he's less efficient across the board, and then Garrison Matthews, who has a more stark contrast between when the defender is 4 to 6 feet away and when there's a defender within 4 feet. Okay, next, let's bring in Grady Dick, and you can see how his three-point percentage drops off a cliff when he's got a defender within 4 feet. He's below 15% on those shots. However, he's on fire nearly 45% when he's wide open. And then Miles McBride has a similar pattern, except he's even more efficient across the board. Moving on, some players' three-point percentage is kind of steady regardless of how close the nearest defender is. First, here's Cade Cunningham, and then here's Paul George, and then Brandon Miller, and finally Dalton Knecht. They're all around 35 or 36% from beyond the arc overall this season, and they're within that 30 to 40% bracket regardless of how close the defender is. Then let's consider Kyrie Irving. He represents a pretty common archetype, players who are pretty efficient as long as they've got at least a little bit of space. If there's a defender within 4 feet though, they get much less efficient. Some other players like Kyrie would be Norman Powell and Darius Garland. And finally, one more group. This is players who see a sharp increase in their efficiency once they're wide open. First is Devin Booker, a defender anywhere within 6 feet, and his efficiency is markedly worse. Similar but slightly less exaggerated, here's Mikal Bridges. Then a surprising player to see here is Victor Wembanyama. I would have guessed that he'd be unbothered as a three-point shooter by a defender because he just shoots over everybody, but he also gets much more efficient when he's wide open. And finally, the most glaring example of this archetype would be Buddy Hield. He's at 47% from 3 when he's wide open, but around 30% or worse with a defender within 6 feet. Alright, thanks for watching, and let me know if there's any other players you'd like to see on this graph.